Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization.
All right, so are you ready to dive into a world where, conquering aging and merging with AI aren't just sci-fi fantasies, but actual political talking points?
Yeah.
Because you asked for a deep dive into the U.S. Transhumanist Party, and especially now as they're hitting their 10-year mark, and wow, do we have some fascinating material to unpack.
Yeah, it really is a unique mix, from speeches and articles to even these glimpses into their online community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all happening against this backdrop of not just their 10th anniversary, but International Longevity Month.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about perfect timing.
It is, yeah. It's like a snapshot of a movement that's in motion. We've got these fiery speeches and these really nuanced articles and even some quirky visual elements.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking ocean-going survival pods, people. It's going to get interesting.
It is.
What I find striking is how the party has evolved in these 10 years, looking at the challenges they're facing and how a new generation is stepping into this transhumanist spotlight. It gives us a glimpse into where humanity could be headed.
Yeah.
So let's start with the man who kicked off this whole movement.
Okay.
Zoltan Istvan.
Yeah.
He's actually present at this 10th anniversary event, but back in 2014, he was campaigning for president in a coffin-shaped bus.
Oh, yeah. He certainly knew how to grab attention.
I mean, come on.
But beneath the theatrics, though,
right.
There's this deep urgency that's driving Zoltan, and he calls it the aging problem.
Yeah, he actually points out that despite all the progress that the party has made in 10 years, he's also 10 years closer to death.
Yeah.
It makes his mission to achieve power over death even more poignant, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And this connects to the core of transhumanist philosophy. It's not just about extending lifespan,
right,
but enhancing life itself.
Yeah.
Eliminating diseases, pushing the boundaries of human capability, and even evolving into something beyond human.
Okay, so radical life extension is the big ambitious goal. But how do you get there politically, especially when you're not exactly a major political party?
Yeah, that's where the U.S. Transhumanist Party strategy gets really interesting.
Okay.
They're playing a different game entirely, you see.
Uh-huh.
They're not focused on winning elections in the traditional sense, at least not yet.
So what are they focused on?
Their goal is nothing short of shifting the entire political conversation.
Wow.
They want to inject these radical ideas,
Okay,
like AI rights, genetic editing, and longevity into mainstream discourse and force other parties to address them.
Charlie Cam, their 2020 presidential candidate, put it brilliantly.
Oh, yeah.
He said that there's this growing dissatisfaction with the two-party system.
Yeah.
And the Transhumanist Party is offering something genuinely different.
Yeah. And he also pointed out something crucial.
What's that?
Every 4 years, a new wave of voters turns 18.
Right.
And this generation is unlike any before it.
Okay.
They've grown up immersed in this advanced technology. They're practically digital natives.
Yeah. They're already living in a future that older generations are struggling to understand.
Yeah.
Which brings us to one of my favorite anecdotes.
Okay.
Remember Zoltan trying to attach the Transhumanist Bill of Rights to the U.S. Capitol building?
Oh, absolutely.
Classic Zoltan.
Classic Zoltan.
It perfectly captures their bold and unconventional approach.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, the wind might have blown it off, but the media attention was huge.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a creative way to get people talking.
It really was.
And speaking of this tech-savvy next generation,
Yeah.
a lot of the speakers we're looking at really emphasize their importance to the transhumanist movement.
Yeah.
It's not just that they're comfortable with technology.
Right.
For them, it's practically second nature.
Yeah. And that's a game changer.
Totally.
This generation is more open to even demanding radical solutions to the problems that they see.
Okay.
Aging, climate change, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
They've grown up seeing the impossible become possible.
Right.
So they're less likely to be held back by traditional thinking.
There's this wonderful story about a 3-year-old girl whose favorite organelle is the endoplasmic reticulum.
Wow.
I know. And her 7-year-old brother is a Minecraft whiz kid.
Oh, wow.
Imagine what they'll be capable of when they get their hands on even more powerful tools.
It really highlights how the future is being shaped by those who are most receptive to its possibilities.
Yeah.
The Transhumanist Party recognizes this and seeks to nurture that openness to new ideas.
It's infectious, the youthful optimism.
Yeah.
But there's also this darker side to the conversations happening here, a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Gennady Stolyarov II, a prominent party figure,
Yeah.
he keeps bringing up this idea of ruin.
Right.
And it's not just aging we're fighting, but war disasters, even our own bad choices.
Yes. The future isn't some guaranteed utopia.
No.
We have to actively build it, protect it, be prepared for unexpected challenges. This theme runs through many of the speeches and articles that you've shared.
Liz Parrish, the 2020 vice presidential candidate, is incredibly passionate about this.
Yeah.
She delivers this powerful plea against war and what she calls a punishment-based society.
Right.
It's a call for a more humane and compassionate approach to the future.
It's a good reminder that even if we achieve this radical life extension,
Right.
the quality of those extended years matters.
Of course.
We need to create a world that's worth living in.
Yeah.
A world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Then we have Bill Andrews, a renowned scientist in the field, who's concerned about the silver tsunami, this wave of aging populations needing care. He's looking at it from a practicality standpoint.
Yeah.
Even if we solve aging, we need to be ready for the societal shift that it'll cause.
It highlights the need for a holistic approach to the future. Technology is a crucial tool.
Right.
But it's not the only answer.
No.
We need to address the social, political, even philosophical implications of these changes.
And then there's Daniel Twedt, the 2024 vice presidential candidate, with his DIY survival pods.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds almost comical, but it speaks to this very real fear of societal collapse. What if everything does go wrong?
Yeah, it's an interesting example of how transhumanist thought can manifest in these unexpected ways.
Yeah.
It's about taking personal responsibility for not just your own survival,
Right.
but the survival of your values and ideals.
It really shows that the Transhumanist Party isn't just about high-tech solutions. It's about a mindset of resilience and adaptability in the face of uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's about being prepared for anything.
And it ties into a broader theme we're seeing emerge.
Oh.
The importance of international collaboration.
Oh, yeah, the transhumanist movement isn't confined to the U.S.
Right.
It's global.
It is.
You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Jose Cordeiro's work in Spain, the Longevity Hackers documentary rallies happening in multiple countries.
Yeah, it's a truly international movement. And that's crucial because the challenges facing humanity are global too. Like as Jose Cordeiro puts it, our enemy isn't some other country.
Right.
It's aging and death itself.
Wow.
We need all of humanity's best minds working together on this.
It's about recognizing our shared vulnerability as a species and working together to overcome it.
Which brings us to another fascinating aspect of the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Okay.
The role of art.
Oh, yeah.
Ramon Garcia Jr., their art director, is a powerful voice in the movement.
He's more than just an artist.
Yeah.
He's living proof of how aging affects even our creative pursuits.
His story really resonates with the transhumanist mission. He even plans to eventually focus entirely on transhumanist art.
Wow.
Exploring the intersection of creativity, technology, and longevity.
It's a reminder that transhumanism isn't just about cold, hard science. It's about the human spirit, the drive to create and express ourselves, even in the face of our own mortality. It's about harnessing technology to push the boundaries of what's possible in every aspect of human life.
And I think that's a perfect segue to something else that's coming up repeatedly in these sources.
Okay. What is it?
It's this idea that transhumanism is more than just a set of beliefs. It's a way of looking at the world.
Okay.
A mindset that embraces change and pushes for progress.
It's about constantly asking why not and then figuring out how to make it happen.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical.
Right.
We're already seeing real-world examples of how transhumanist ideas are shaping our lives.
Okay, like what?
We'll take Jose Cordeiro's point about Madrid's surprisingly high life expectancy. It's even higher than some of those famous blue zones that are known for longevity.
Huh, who knew? It really challenges our assumptions about what contributes to a long and healthy life.
Yeah, and it underscores the importance of exploring a wide range of approaches to health and well-being, from lifestyle choices to cutting-edge technologies.
Makes you wonder what Madrid's secret is.
Yeah.
But it's not just happening in Spain.
Right.
Dr. Bill Andrews mentioned a fascinating initiative taking shape right here in the U.S., a March for Longevity Rights planned for the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
It's a powerful way to bring these ideas into the public square and demonstrate that there's a growing movement of people passionate about extending lifespan and health span.
I love the imagery of a March for Longevity.
Yeah.
It's like we're not just passively waiting for aging to happen.
Right.
We're actively demanding a future where it doesn't have to define our limitations.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming agency over our own bodies and futures.
And speaking of pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
we can't talk about transhumanism without addressing the elephant in the room, AI.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme throughout these sources, and for good reason.
It's everywhere these days.
It is.
And it's evolving at an incredible pace. It has the potential to revolutionize everything from healthcare to transportation to, well, even politics.
And the Transhumanist Party is keenly aware of both the immense possibilities and the potential risks of AI.
Right.
They're not just advocating for responsible development, but actively exploring how AI can be harnessed to benefit humanity.
Tom Ross, their current presidential candidate, is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah?
He's actually got an AI campaign manager.
It's a bold move.
It is.
That demonstrates his belief in AI as a force for positive change. He even talks about how AI, as it becomes more intelligent, will actually become kinder and more cooperative.
He's not shying away from the controversy surrounding AI either.
Right.
He mentioned using humor and even engaging with some of the wilder conspiracy theories out there as a way to get people thinking about AI's potential.
It's a clever strategy, really. Meeting people where they are and using humor to spark conversations can be incredibly effective in breaking down barriers and fostering understanding.
He also made a really intriguing point about the need for generational knowledge transfer.
Oh, yeah?
As AI systems become more advanced, it'll be crucial to find ways to impart the wisdom and experience of older generations to these new intelligent systems.
It's a critical point, and it highlights the importance of bridging the gap between the analog and digital worlds. We need to foster collaboration between those who grew up in the pre-digital age and those who are digital natives. If we want to create a future where AI truly complements human intelligence.
It's about recognizing that everyone has something valuable to contribute, regardless of their age or background, and that diversity of perspectives will be essential in shaping the future of AI.
Speaking of bridging gaps,
Yeah.
one of the challenges the Transhumanist Party faces is communicating these complex and often radical ideas to a broader audience. And I think their emphasis on visual art is a brilliant approach.
It's true. Art has a way of transcending language and cultural barriers, sparking our imaginations in ways that words sometimes can't.
Ramon Garcia Jr., the party's art director, talked about creating art that captures both the aspirations and anxieties of the transhumanist movement.
Right.
He wants to create art that evokes a visceral response, something you feel rather than just intellectually processed.
It's about making these abstract ideas tangible, relatable, and emotionally resonant.
Yeah, and Ramon is walking the walk. He's even said he wants to create art that can't be replicated by AI.
That raises a really interesting question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What is it that makes human creativity unique? And how can we preserve and nurture that uniqueness in a world that's increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence?
It's about finding that sweet spot where human ingenuity and technological innovation intersect, and ensuring that the future isn't just technologically advanced, but aesthetically rich and culturally vibrant as well.
Ramon shared a very personal story about how aging has impacted his own artistic practice. As he's gotten older, physical limitations have forced him to adapt the way he creates art.
It's a powerful reminder that aging isn't just some abstract concept.
No.
It has real-world consequences for our lives, our work, and our relationships.
And it underscores the importance of proactive planning. Ramon's already thinking about what surgeries he might need to undergo in the future to maintain his health and artistic abilities as he ages.
It's a very transhumanist approach.
Yeah.
Taking control of your health and destiny.
Right.
Rather than simply accepting the limitations that aging often imposes.
He's not just waiting for things to happen.
Yeah.
He's actively shaping his own future.
And it got me thinking about my own experiences with aging. I'm not as far along as Ramon.
Right.
But I'm a runner, And I've definitely noticed that it takes me longer to recover from workouts than it used to.
Yeah.
I can't push myself as hard as I once could.
It's a common experience.
Yeah.
As we age, our bodies change and we have to adapt. But that doesn't mean we have to accept decline as inevitable.
It's made me more aware of the importance of taking care of my health and exploring new ways to maintain my physical abilities as I get older.
And it highlights the personal stakes involved in the quest for longevity. It's not just about living longer.
Right.
It's about preserving the things that give our lives meaning and joy for as long as possible.
The activities we love, the relationships we cherish, the ability to contribute to the world in meaningful ways. Those are the things that make life worth living.
Yeah.
And those are the things that the transhumanist movement is ultimately fighting to preserve.
It's a fight for the future of human experience itself.
Yeah.
And it's a fight that's happening on a global scale.
Which brings us to another key theme that's woven throughout these sources.
Okay.
The importance of international collaboration.
We've already touched on the global nature of the transhumanist movement, but I think it's worth emphasizing just how crucial this collaboration will be.
The challenges facing humanity transcend national borders, climate change, aging, the development of artificial intelligence.
Right. Yeah.
These are issues that will require global solutions.
And there's a real sense of excitement about the potential for collective action on a global scale.
Yeah.
Like there's this great comment in the online chat from Lisa Royo. Imagine if all these parties and organizations pulled off a united action.
Wow.
It really resonated with me.
It's a powerful image. A unified transhumanist front.
Right.
Working together to advocate for the future we want to create.
It's about breaking down those national borders and recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We need to pool our resources, our knowledge, and our passion if we want to create a future that benefits all of humanity.
And the Transhumanist Party,
Yeah.
despite being rooted in the U.S. political landscape, has a vital role to play in facilitating this global collaboration.
Yeah.
It's a platform for dialogue.
A space where people from diverse backgrounds and cultures can come together to share ideas, build relationships, and work towards a common goal.
And it's not just about scientists and technologists.
Right.
We need artists, writers, philosophers, entrepreneurs, activists. Everyone has something to contribute.
Yeah, the more diverse the movement is, the more innovative and resilient it will be.
It's about building a movement that's as inclusive and welcoming as the future we're trying to create. And it's about recognizing that the future isn't something that's predetermined.
Yeah.
It's something we're actively shaping through our choices, our actions, and our collaborations.
It's about choosing to believe in the possibility of a better future and then working together to make it a reality.
Now, one thing that really struck me as I was going through all this material is the sense of urgency that permeates so much of the transhumanist discourse.
Yeah.
There's this recognition that we need to act now, that time is of the essence.
It's a powerful motivator.
And it stems from the understanding that the future isn't guaranteed. We have to fight for it.
And it's not just about fighting against aging and death. It's about fighting for the things that make life worth living. Freedom, knowledge, compassion, creativity, the opportunity to live meaningful lives.
It's about recognizing that the stakes are higher than ever before, and that the future of humanity is worth fighting for.
The Transhumanist Party at its core is about more than just politics.
Yeah.
It's a movement. It's a community of people committed to creating a better future for themselves, their children, and all of humanity.
It's a beacon of hope in a world that can often feel dark and uncertain. And it's a reminder that we have the power to shape our own destiny.
Yeah.
If we're willing to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
And that message really resonates with me.
Yeah.
We're not powerless in the face of the future. We have agency, we have choices, and we have the ability to make a difference.
It's a call to action, a challenge to step up, get involved, and make our voices heard.
The future isn't something that's going to happen to us. It's something that we're going to create.
And the time to start creating it is now.
That's a powerful call to action. But you know what else struck me as I was digging into all of this? The emphasis on personal responsibility. Like, it's not just about waiting for some, like, magical tech solution to fix everything.
Yeah, Daniel Twett's DIY survival pods are a perfect, albeit quirky example of this mindset.
Totally.
It's about being prepared, taking ownership of your own fate.
It ties into what Liz Parrish was saying about moving away from a punishment-based society. It's like instead of waiting to be saved or punished, transhumanists are saying, let's create the tools and the knowledge to empower ourselves.
Yeah, it's a very proactive, almost entrepreneurial spirit. And it makes sense given that so many in the movement come from tech backgrounds where problem solving and innovation are key.
Yeah, they're used to building things, iterating, finding solutions, not just sitting around and complaining.
Right. Which brings up a really interesting question.
Okay.
How do you translate that problem-solving energy into the often messy and slow-moving world of politics?
Because let's face it, the U.S. Transhumanist Party isn't exactly a major political force yet.
Right. That's where their strategy of shifting the entire political conversation comes in. They're not just trying to win elections in the traditional sense.
Okay.
They're trying to change the way we think about the future.
Like Zoltan said, he wants to see other political parties drawing upon transhumanist ideas.
Yeah.
It's about planting seeds that will eventually grow into a new way of seeing the world.
And that's where the power of ideas comes in. Ideas have a way of spreading, evolving, and taking root in unexpected places.
It's like that William Gibson quote, "The future's already here, it's just not very evenly distributed."
Yeah.
The Transhumanist Party is trying to distribute those future-forward ideas more widely.
And that's something we can all participate in. Whether we consider ourselves like card-carrying transhumanists or not, by engaging with these ideas, discussing them, debating them,
Yeah.
we're helping to shape the future.
It's about creating a cultural climate where these ideas can take root and flourish.
And it's about recognizing that the future isn't something that happens to us.
Right.
It's something that we create.
I have to admit, it's a lot to take in.
It can be overwhelming, but I think that's part of what makes the transhumanist movement so fascinating.
Okay.
It forces us to confront our own assumptions about what's possible and what's desirable.
It's a reminder that the future isn't going to look like the past.
Right.
And that we need to be open to new ways of thinking and living.
Yeah, it's a challenge to expand our imaginations and envision a future that's truly worthy of our potential.
It's about embracing the unknown rather than fearing it. And it's about recognizing that the future isn't predetermined. We're creating it right now through our choices, actions, and collaborations.
Which brings us back to that sense of urgency we talked about.
Yeah.
If we want to create a future that's more equitable and more fulfilling, we need to start acting now.
We need to raise awareness, build community, and advocate for the policies that support our vision.
We need to support the scientists and researchers who are pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And we need to engage in those tough conversations about the ethical and societal implications of these emerging technologies.
That's not going to be easy.
Right.
But it's a fight worth having.
Because ultimately the future of humanity is at stake.
Yeah, as both Jose Cordeiro and Bill Andrews pointed out. The enemy isn't some other country.
Right.
It's aging and death itself.
That's a brilliant way to reframe the challenges we face.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from our differences to our shared vulnerability as a species.
And it suggests that the solutions will require collaboration, not competition. It's a call for unity in the face of our shared mortality.
Which is a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's about transcending the limitations death imposes.
It's about embracing the full potential of human life, both individually and collectively.
And that's a vision I can definitely get behind.
I think we all can.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
What will you do to help create a future that's truly worthy of the human spirit?
It's a big question, and one that each of us has to answer for ourselves. But what's clear from all of this is that we do have a choice.
Yeah.
The future isn't some fixed point. It's something we're actively shaping.
And that ties into something else that came up repeatedly.
Okay.
This idea that transhumanism is as much about a certain mindset as it is about the technology.
Yeah, the tech is just a tool. Really, what matters is how we use it and what kind of future we're trying to build with it.
It's about challenging those old assumptions, questioning limitations, and constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Which is why I found Dr. Dan Elton's point about Robin Hanson's tug-of-war analogy so fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
He said the Transhumanist Party is pulling from a completely different direction than the traditional political parties.
Right.
They're introducing entirely new ideas into the conversation.
They're disruptors in a way.
Yeah.
They're forcing people to think outside the box, to consider possibilities that might seem like science fiction just a few years ago.
And you can see that in their platform.
Yeah.
They're tackling topics that no other political party is even touching.
Right.
Radical life extension, AI, rights, the ethics of genetic engineering, space exploration, and colonization.
It's a bold vision.
It is.
And while some of it might seem far-fetched,
right.
it's incredibly inspiring to see a group of people so dedicated to creating a future that's more just equitable and fulfilling for everyone.
And they're not just talking about it in vague terms.
No.
They have concrete policy proposals, reforming the FDA to speed up access to life-saving treatments, investing in longevity research, creating a legal framework for AI rights, promoting space exploration.
These are ambitious goals, but they're not impossible.
Right.
If we have the collective will and a clear vision, we can make them happen.
And that's what I think the Transhumanist Party is ultimately all about. It's about igniting that spark of possibility in people's minds, inspiring them to believe that we don't have to settle for the limitations of the present.
It's about empowering individuals to take control of their own destinies and work together to build a world where everyone can thrive.
A world where aging is optional, where technology augments our abilities, and where the boundaries of human potential are constantly being redefined.
And that's a future I, for one, am excited to help build.
Me too.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and feeling intrigued, maybe even a little challenged by what we've been discussing, I encourage you to dive in and learn more. There's a whole universe of transhumanist thought out there waiting to be explored.
And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself wanting to join the party.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
All right, so, wow, you've really given us a lot to unpack here. Articles, YouTube transcripts, even some campaign materials.
Yeah, somebody's been busy.
It looks like you're really fascinated by transhumanism and AI, and that's what we're here to dive into today.
What I find really interesting is the variety of viewpoints represented here. You've got people excited about pushing human limits, others are worried about the ethics, and then there's the whole political angle with the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
And yeah, you've sent over a ton of info from them.
Yeah.
Their core values, goals like life extension and ethically developing AI. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary this year, and they seem pretty focused on this idea of the singularity. Maybe we should break that down for our listeners.
For sure. So the technological and economic singularity is this idea that at some point, technology will advance so quickly that it'll completely transform human society as we know it. The Transhumanist Party believes this is inevitable, and they want to be ready for it.
And it looks like they've chosen their champion for the 2024 election. Tom Ross, their presidential candidate. And get this, his campaign is actually being run by AI.
That's right. He's all about humor, unconventional ideas, even talking about cheat codes to shake up the system.
So instead of aiming for the White House, he's aiming for our minds, trying to get us to think differently about the future. But where does that fit into the whole debate about AI? Because in what you sent us, some folks seem terrified of it, seeing it as this threat to humanity, while others think it'll save us.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Some fear AI becoming this uncontrollable force, maybe manipulated by powerful groups, or even becoming sentient and turning against us, like classic sci-fi dystopia. But these are real fears for people. Others, like Ross, see AI as a tool, a powerful one, but under our control. They believe the benefits, like transparency, fighting corruption, even empowering individuals, outweigh the risks.
So Ross is definitely an AI optimist, and he's got these initiatives. The Earthling Initiative and the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative that he claims will help us navigate this future driven by AI. We'll start with the Earthling Initiative. What's the basic idea?
So the Earthling Initiative is all about adapting to the huge changes that AI and automation are already bringing, especially when it comes to jobs. Ross acknowledges jobs will be lost, but instead of panicking, he proposes a whole new way of thinking about work and income.
So instead of being scared of robots stealing our jobs, he wants us to find new ways to be valuable.
Exactly. He's talking about a new economy built on passions and hobbies. Imagine using platforms like Etsy and YouTube not just for fun, but as legitimate ways to make money. It's about finding something you love and sharing it with the world, making a living, doing what fulfills you.
It sounds pretty utopian, but how does that actually work? Is it just all about good vibes and wishful thinking?
Well, community collaboration is a big part of it. Think about things like community farming or active neighborhoods, people supporting each other through this transition. He also suggests more practical solutions like comprehensive job transition programs and strong support networks to help people through the rough patches.
So it's not just about dreaming of a better future. It's about having concrete plans to get there. But what about this artisanal intelligence initiative? Is this where we all start making custom-made robots and handcrafted algorithms?
Not exactly. The Artisanal Intelligence Initiative is all about protecting human creativity in a world where AI can generate art, music, literature. You name it. Ross is worried about the potential for AI to make our culture too similar, too bland and predictable.
Wait, AI homogenizing art. How would that even work?
Just think about it. If AI can pump out decent art, music, even novels, what happens to human artists? Are we all just going to end up listening to the same AI-generated pop songs, reading the same algorithm-written bestsellers? Ross sees that as a real danger.
So instead of letting algorithms run the show, he wants us to focus on what makes human art unique.
Exactly. This initiative is all about human-AI collaboration, finding ways for artists to use AI as a tool to boost their creativity, not to replace it. It's about highlighting the special things that AI just can't replicate: the emotional depth, individual expression, the sheer weirdness and beauty of human art.
Now this is where things get really interesting. Ross seems to believe that millennials and Gen Z, those digital natives, are the key to navigating this whole new world. He's calling for younger leadership to take on the challenges of AI and technology head-on. What do you make of that?
It's a bold statement, for sure. He argues that younger generations, having grown up surrounded by technology, understand its complexity in ways that older people simply don't. They're less afraid of change, more comfortable with the blurring lines between the physical and digital worlds. It's almost like Ross is saying, who better to lead us in this human AI world than the generation that's always had a smartphone in hand?
So, are younger generations really better equipped to handle this AI revolution?
That's a tough question. Just being comfortable with technology doesn't automatically mean you're wise or can make good ethical decisions. We need a variety of perspectives, experiences, and yes, ages to figure this out. But I think Ross is right to highlight the unique role that younger generations have to play. They're the ones who will inherit this future, so their voices need to be heard.
Absolutely. And speaking of diverse perspectives, your research also shows a wide range of opinions on AI, from fear and skepticism to hope and optimism. Some folks see AI as a potential threat to our existence, while others see it as our greatest opportunity for progress.
That tension is at the very core of the AI debate. Some worry about AI getting out of control, becoming a force that could harm us, whether it means to or not. They point to dystopian sci-fi, but those fears are very real for a lot of people.
It's the classic Frankenstein's monster scenario.
Yeah.
We create something powerful and it turns on its creator.
But then you have others like Ross who see AI as this powerful force for good. They think it can enhance our abilities, help solve really complex problems, even address global challenges like climate change, poverty, and disease. They argue that AI used responsibly and ethically has the potential to make the world a better place.
So it really comes down to a question of control and intent. Can we control AI? And can we make sure it's used for good? It's a huge gamble with potentially massive consequences either way.
Absolutely. And that's where Ross's Earthling Initiative and Artisanal Intelligence Initiative come into play. They're his attempts to tackle those very questions to find ways to use AI for good while minimizing the risks.
Let's break those down a bit more. The Earthling Initiative seems to focus on getting ready for the changes that AI and automation will bring, especially to the job market.
It's about adapting and being resilient. Ross knows that automation will cost jobs, but instead of freaking out, he suggests we change how we think about work and income. He imagines a new economy based on passions and hobbies where people can use platforms like Etsy and YouTube to actually earn money from their interests.
So instead of being scared of robots taking our jobs, he's saying we should find new ways to create value and contribute to society. But is that really possible? Can we really have a world where everyone gets to pursue their passions and make a living doing what they love?
It's a bold vision, that's for sure. It would require a huge shift in our values, priorities, even our economic systems. It raises questions about what work and value even mean in a world where AI can do so many of the jobs that humans used to do.
And then there's the Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, which focuses on preserving human creativity, even as AI starts creating art, music, and literature.
It's about recognizing the unique value of human expression and craftsmanship. Ross argues that while AI can make technically good art, it just doesn't have the soul, the depth, the emotional impact that comes from human creativity. He's worried about a future where algorithms tell us what we like and everything becomes boring and predictable.
So it's not about rejecting AI altogether. It's about finding ways to use it to enhance and boost human expression to create something truly unique and special.
Exactly. It's about working together, not replacing humans. He sees a future where artists use AI as a tool to push their creative boundaries, to explore new ways of expressing themselves, and to create art that is uniquely human. He believes that human creativity fueled by passion and emotion will always have a place, even in a world dominated by AI.
One of the most interesting things about Ross is that he's willing to talk about the conspiracy theories surrounding transhumanism. He actually seems to see them as a chance to start conversations and address people's fears head on.
It's definitely a risky approach. By engaging with people who see transhumanism as some evil plan or conspiracy, he could actually be giving those views more credibility. But his whole approach seems to be based on the idea that open discussion and transparency are the best ways to debunk myths and misunderstandings.
He's not shying away from the controversial parts of transhumanism. He's acknowledging the fear, the anxiety, the potential downsides, while still advocating for the potential benefits.
Exactly. He's trying to take control of the narrative to move past those dystopian sci-fi portrayals and present a more nuanced and human-centered vision of the future. He's betting that open and honest conversation is the way to build trust and understanding.
You mentioned earlier that he even uses elements of performance art in his messaging. Can you give us an example?
Sure. Some of his campaign posters have a close-up of his face with this intense, almost unsettling stare. It's meant to be provocative to get a reaction, to make people talk.
It's definitely memorable.
Yeah.
But doesn't that risk reinforcing those negative stereotypes about transhumanism? You know, the whole creepy cyborg thing?
That's a valid point. He's walking a fine line. But he seems aware of the risk. And he's using those images strategically to spark conversation and challenge preconceived notions.
You also shared that video about those Nigerian students who are doing amazing things with technology, even with limited resources. It really seemed to go against the idea that transhumanism is only for rich elites.
That video was a perfect example of how technology can actually level the playing field. Those students, with their ingenuity and resourcefulness, prove that anyone can be part of shaping the future regardless of their background or how much money they have.
It was really inspiring to see how they were using their skills and creativity to solve problems in their own communities. It highlighted the idea that transhumanism at its heart is about human potential and empowerment.
Exactly. It reminds us that the future isn't set in stone. It's something we actively create together, and everyone has a role to play.
Another theme that kept coming up in what you sent was the importance of longevity in the transhumanist movement. They argue that people need to live longer in order to fully benefit from advancements in AI technology and human enhancement.
It's not just about living longer, it's about living healthier for longer. They want to extend health span, not just lifespan, making sure people can live longer, healthier, more fulfilling lives. They see aging as a disease that we can overcome, a barrier to reaching our full potential.
So it's not just about adding years to our lives, but about adding life to our years.
Exactly. It's about maximizing human potential, giving people more time to learn, grow, create, contribute to society. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible for human experience.
You mentioned Dr. Bill Andrews, a leading telomere biologist in your research, and his belief that curing aging is crucial to realizing the full potential of the transhumanist vision. What's his take on all of this?
Dr. Andrews believes that if we can actually overcome aging, we can unlock human potential in ways we can't even imagine right now. He sees it as the key to solving so many of the world's problems. People would have more time to dedicate to finding solutions, to innovating, to creating a better future. It would fundamentally change how we relate to time and our own mortality.
But wouldn't dramatically extending lifespan create new problems too? Things like overpopulation, resource scarcity, or inequality between generations?
Transhumanists believe that we can solve these challenges through technological innovation and a shift in our values and priorities. It's about creating a future where longer lifespans are sustainable and beneficial for everyone, not just a select few.
So it's not just about living longer, it's about creating a world where longer lives are worth living for everyone.
Exactly. It's about creating a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential, no matter how old they are. It's a bold vision full of challenges and complexities, but also full of possibilities.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the intersection of transhumanism and politics, the hopes and fears surrounding AI, and the potential implications of extending the human lifespan.
And throughout all these discussions, there's this underlying current of uncertainty. We're dealing with powerful technologies, radical ideas, and the potential for both incredible progress and unintended consequences.
It's a lot to process. So what does all this mean for the average person? How do we even prepare for a future that's changing so fast and is so uncertain?
I think the most important thing is to develop a mindset of adaptability and continuous learning. We need to be curious to think critically, to be open to new ideas, and willing to challenge our own assumptions.
So instead of trying to predict the future, we should be ready to embrace whatever comes our way.
Exactly. We need to be comfortable with not knowing everything and acknowledge that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Well said. And maybe, just maybe, it's about recognizing that the most important questions aren't about technology itself, but about what it means to be human in a world that's increasingly shaped by technology.
What are our values? What are we striving for? What kind of future do we want to create for ourselves and for the generations that come after us?
Those are questions that will stay with us long after this deep dive is over.
And they're questions that each of us has to grapple with as we navigate this uncharted territory of rapid technological change.
We hope this exploration has given you some new insights and perspectives on transhumanism, AI, and the exciting and challenging future that lies ahead.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into your sources.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep shaping the future. Going through all the stuff you sent, it really strikes me how much transhumanism and politics are mixing these days, especially with the U.S. Transhumanist Party trying to make waves in the 2024 election.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance they're trying to pull off. On the one hand, they've got this bold, futuristic vision pushing the limits of what humans can be, but they're also working within a very real political system that often resists radical ideas.
It's like they're trying to bridge the gap between a sci-fi future and the messy reality of politics today. And their presidential candidate, Tom Ross, really seems to embody that tension.
Oh, absolutely. He's pretty upfront about the fact that he probably won't win. But that's not the point. Ross sees this campaign as a way to get people talking, to challenge the usual assumptions of politics, and to plant seeds for the future.
So he's playing the long game.
Yeah.
Trying to shift the whole conversation so that ideas that sound fringe today become mainstream tomorrow.
Exactly. And to do that, he's using some pretty unconventional tactics, like embracing humor, using AI to run his campaign, even engaging with conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
All to get people thinking and talking about transhumanism.
You mentioned cheat codes before. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, one of his campaign posters actually says, "Come play president with me. I've got cheat codes." It's this playful way of saying he's approaching the political system from a different angle. He's not playing by the traditional rules.
So it's like he's trying to hack the system to find those loopholes that let him introduce these radical ideas into a space that's usually pretty resistant to change.
Right. He's treating the election as a platform, a stage, to show off transhumanist ideas. He's using AI, out there ideas, even elements of performance art to disrupt the status quo and make people pay attention.
And he's definitely getting attention. But is this approach actually effective in the long run?
I guess it depends on how you define effective. If it's about winning the election in the traditional sense, probably not.
Yeah.
But if the goal is to raise awareness, spark debate, and introduce transhumanist ideas to a wider audience, then he's definitely making progress.
I can't help but think about one of the most ethically charged issues we've come across, this idea of playing God.
Right. It's a common criticism of transhumanists.
Yeah, like they're crossing some line by trying to enhance human capabilities and extend lifespan.
It often comes from a place of discomfort with the idea of messing with human nature.
Like it's a realm we shouldn't touch.
Some view it as interfering with something sacred.
But haven't humans always been using technology to improve their lives?
That's the transhumanist argument.
Think about it, from fire in the wheel to modern medicine. We've always tried to overcome our limitations.
They see technology as a tool for progress, for reducing suffering and maximizing our potential. They don't view aging as inevitable, but as a disease to be cured.
So it's not about defying nature, but working with it, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Right. The real debate is about where the line is. Where does responsible enhancement become overreach? And who decides where that line is?
Those are some heavy questions. And, our sources also touched on the connection between transhumanism and conspiracy theories.
It's interesting how those ideas get linked.
I mean, transhumanism, with its focus on radical change in technology, can easily feed into those anxieties about hidden agendas and powerful groups controlling the future.
Yeah, it plays right into those fears of the unknown.
Exactly. And we saw this with Tom Ross's campaign. His use of AI as his campaign manager and his unconventional tactics kind of played into those fears about AI manipulation and control.
Right. It's like he's intentionally poking at those fears.
And while he says it's about starting a conversation, it could also end up legitimizing those fears for some people. It's a tricky balance to strike.
Definitely. And it's important to remember that the transhumanist movement isn't one big uniform group.
So you're saying there are a lot of different viewpoints within the movement itself?
Oh, absolutely. They might agree on some core beliefs, but there's a whole spectrum of opinions when it comes to the speed of change, the role of technology, and even the ultimate goals of transhumanism.
We saw this in those discussions about extending lifespan.
For sure. Some see it as absolutely necessary for a transhumanist future, while others are more hesitant, bringing up concerns about what a longer lifespan would mean for society.
And even among those who support life extension, there are different approaches.
Right. Some are all about high-tech solutions like gene editing or nanotechnology, while others focus on lifestyle changes and preventative measures.
It reminds us that these aren't just theoretical debates. They're really personal questions about how we want to live our lives and what kind of future we want to build.
Absolutely. And speaking of building the future, those Nigerian student tech innovators, they offer a really hopeful perspective.
Oh yeah, those students were amazing. So inventive and resourceful.
It really challenges the idea that transhumanism is just for the wealthy elite.
Right, it shows that anyone can contribute to technological progress.
Their work highlights the importance of grassroots innovation and finding solutions that work locally.
It's not just about those grand visions of the future. It's about using technology to tackle real problems in our communities.
Exactly. It reminds us that we're not just passive bystanders in the face of the future. We actually create the future.
And that creation involves making choices, weighing trade-offs, and constantly negotiating between what we hope for and what we fear about what's possible.
Okay, so get ready because we are diving headfirst into transhumanism today.
Head first.
But, and I think this is important to say right off the bat, we're not talking, like teleporting ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, not that kind of transhumanism.
Not the science fiction kind.
Exactly. We're talking the real deal here, real world politics, the ethics of living longer and what it all means, for you listening.
And we have some really interesting stuff to dig into.
We do. You gave me a ton of
interviews with Gennady Stolyarov II.
Yeah, the leader of the U.S. Transhumanist Party, right?
That's right. And some excerpts from their publications and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like this weird mix of philosophy and technology.
And economics.
Oh, right. Yeah, he talks about that too. And Stolyarov, he sees those things, those big ideas, as all connected, right?
Yeah, all tied together.
Yeah.
Especially when you bring in this idea of abundance. He's really big on that.
Abundance. Okay, so let's start there. One of the first things that jumped out, at least for me, from the interviews was this whole scarcity mindset thing.
Right.
Which he says is shaping how we do politics, which sounds kind of out there, but...
Well, he's got a point though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying it's like this leftover, this instinct from, way back when we were all just trying to survive.
Yeah, but he's not just talking about not having enough food or whatever. Right?
No, he goes deeper than that. He's talking about time.
Time.
Yeah, because we only have so much time, right? Our lifespans, even now, even with, all our fancy medicine.
It's still limited.
It puts us in this box. If someone else is getting more, it has to mean that we're getting less.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
That whole zero-sum game.
And he's saying that's baked into how we do politics.
Pretty much. The whole system. It's built for a world where people don't live long enough to see the really long-term consequences of their choices,
So we think short-term because for most of human history, that's all that really mattered.
I think that's a big part of his point, yeah.
Wow, it really makes you wonder, how different could things be if we weren't always operating from that place of fear?
Exactly. And that's where this transhumanism thing comes in. This is Stolyarov's alternative, right? He's talking about a future with radical life extension.
Living way longer.
Yeah. And not just longer, but maybe even indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Okay, now we're getting into some really interesting territory, especially for people, who are into life extension. But doesn't Stolyarov actually disagree with Bill Gates on this?
He does. Gates has said that it's kind of selfish to focus on making ourselves live longer when you have things like malaria still out there.
Which on the surface, yeah, it does sound a little out of touch.
Yeah, shouldn't we fix the problems we already have before we start messing with how long we live, right?
But Stolyarov's saying it's not that simple.
Exactly. He says it's not about picking one problem over another. He sees these things, like ending poverty, curing diseases, even extending life, as all connected.
So, if we figure out one, it helps us figure out the others.
He calls them synergistic. Maybe the tech we develop to live longer also helps us treat malaria more effectively.
Okay. That's a really interesting way to look at it. Not just separate problems, but all kind of...
Intertwined,
Yeah, I like that. Challenges us to think bigger, you know?
Absolutely. And speaking of thinking bigger, you included this article about super soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
France and China are apparently working on enhancing soldiers, making them stronger, giving them better focus. It's straight out of a movie.
Right. Total sci-fi thriller stuff.
Yeah.
It plays into that fear a lot of people have about this whole transhumanism thing.
For sure. Like, it'll just create this elite class of enhanced humans and leave everyone else behind.
Exactly. So what does Stolyarov say about that? Because he's all about this future, but does he address the downsides?
He does. And it's interesting. He doesn't think those things, being stronger, having better focus, more stamina, they're not automatically bad. It's how we use those things that matters.
How we use them. Okay, so how does he explain that? Because it seems like more power, like inevitably someone's going to abuse it.
Well, he compares it to athletes.
Yeah.
Like, some people are just born with amazing athletic abilities.
Right, natural talent.
Exactly. Should we ban someone from the Olympics because they were born with incredible speed?
I mean, I guess that's the question, right? Where do you draw the line between what's natural and what's, I don't know.
An unfair advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got to be even more complicated now with all the gene editing stuff they're working on.
100%. That's why Stolyarov and his party, the Transhumanist Party, they're really big on individual choice.
Like, it should be up to each person how far they want to take this.
He uses the example of the Amish, how they've chosen to opt out of a lot of technology.
Right, like living a simpler life intentionally.
He says that's their choice, and he thinks in the future we might have people who embrace some technologies, but not others, just like them.
So you could choose to get gene editing for a disease, but say no to, I don't know, enhanced muscles or something.
Exactly. It gets really interesting when you start thinking about how different people might approach these choices.
Yeah, like what if they're transhumanist Amish or something?
Right. He actually uses that term.
No way!
Yeah, transhumanist Amish. Like, even with all this wild technology, people still might choose to set limits, which I think is kind of reassuring in a weird way.
It is reassuring. Okay, but before we get too far down that road, we have to talk about this other thing you sent me, this Bill Gates patent.
Oh, yeah.
This one is a little unnerving, to be honest. Like, a system that tracks people's behavior, even their DNA, and then rewards them with cryptocurrency.
It does sound like something out of a Black Mirror episode.
Tell me about it. It's like, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Right.
I mean, it's already hard enough to protect our privacy online as it is.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does Stolyarov think about that? Because he's all about using technology to improve things, but this just seems like, I don't know.
Step too far.
Maybe. It feels like a slippery slope.
Yeah. It definitely makes you wonder, like, who gets to decide what's good behavior?
Exactly. And what about the people who don't want to be tracked, even if they get rewarded? What happens to them?
That's something Stolyarov is really concerned about, actually. He talks a lot about data privacy. He thinks people should be rewarded for sharing their data, yeah, but it should be a choice,
So more like incentivized, not forced.
Right. He sees this whole system Gates is talking about as, like, potentially really manipulative.
Yeah, especially for people who are already struggling or maybe don't understand the technology that well.
Exactly. He wants to see a future where we have control over our own data, Like, we get to decide who has access to it, how it's used. We can even choose to keep it private altogether.
Okay, so it's like more power to the individual, less to the big companies or governments that want to track everything we do. But how do we actually get there?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question. But Stolyarov, he's not just pointing out problems. He's actually got some pretty interesting ideas about how to make things better.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, he's a big proponent of using all this new technology to create a more abundant future for everyone. He talks about things like 3D printed homes that are super affordable and universal basic income.
Universal basic income, that's a whole other conversation. But essentially you're saying he thinks we could use tech to solve some of the biggest problems we're facing.
Exactly. Like, imagine a world without homelessness, because anyone who needs a house can just print one.
Okay, that does sound pretty utopian.
Right. And the universal basic income, he sees that as a way to make sure that even if automation takes over a lot of jobs, everyone still has enough to live on. It's about making sure that everyone benefits from these technological advances, not just a select few.
That makes sense. But I gotta ask, what about this whole living longer thing? If people are living, like, way longer, wouldn't that just create a whole new set of
It's
problems?
definitely something to think about. I mean, imagine what it would be like to live for hundreds of years,
Yeah.
right? How would that change the way we think about work, family, even just our place in the world?
It's kind of mind-blowing when you actually try to picture it.
Right. And Stolyarov, he's all about exploring those possibilities. He thinks it could radically change everything. Like retirement wouldn't be tied to age anymore. You could have multiple generations working together on projects that last for centuries. People could have multiple careers over their lifetime.
Wow. It's like hitting the reset button on all of society.
Pretty much. It challenges us to rethink everything.
Okay, so we've got longer lifespans, maybe even no limit on how long we can live. We've got 3D printed houses, universal basic income. What else does this transhumanist future hold?
Well, we can't talk about transhumanism without talking about artificial intelligence.
True. And you mentioned earlier that Stolyarov believes we're approaching a technological singularity. What does that even mean?
So he looks back at history, right? And he sees moments like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and the information revolution as these massive turning points. He calls them singularities. Basically, moments when everything changed so much that it was almost impossible to predict what would happen next.
So, like, we're going through one of those right now with all the AI stuff and gene editing and nanotechnology and...
That's what he thinks. He says it's all happening so fast, and it's all connected, and it's all going to lead to changes we can barely even imagine.
It's kind of exciting and terrifying at the same time, isn't it? So in this future, this singularity, what does he think happens to AI?
He's actually pretty optimistic about it. He thinks AI could be the key to solving some of humanity's biggest problems, like climate change, disease, things like that.
So instead of robots taking over the world, they're actually going to help us save it.
That's the hope anyway. But he also acknowledges that there are risks. Like, what happens if AI becomes more intelligent than humans? What if it starts making decisions that aren't in our best interests?
Okay, yeah, that's where it starts to feel a little less optimistic. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, Stolyarov talks about the importance of making sure AI is aligned with human values. Like, we need to be really careful about the goals we program into these systems, and we need to make sure they understand and respect things like ethics and morality.
So it's not just about building smarter and faster AI, it's about building ethical AI that's actually going to make the world a better place.
Exactly. He's all about using technology to improve things, but he also recognizes that it's not a magic bullet.
Which brings us back to that Bill Gates patent. Because that whole system, it seems like it could go either way, right?
Definitely. On the one hand, you could argue that it's just a way to encourage people to make better choices.
Like a nudge in the right direction?
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, it's easy to see how it could be used to control people, especially if it becomes mandatory or if people are punished for not participating.
Right. It's like, are we really free to make our own choices if we're constantly being watched and judged and rewarded or punished for our every action?
It's a tricky balance. Stolyarov, he's very aware of that. He keeps coming back to this idea of individual choice, of autonomy. He doesn't think we should have to choose between progress and freedom.
So how do we find that balance? Because it does feel like all this amazing technology is coming out, but it has the potential to be used for good or for evil.
That's one way to put it. And Stolyarov would argue that it all comes down to our mindset. Like, if we approach all of this with a scarcity mentality, if we're always competing with each other, always afraid of not having enough, then yeah, things could go south pretty quickly. But if we can shift to a more abundant mindset.
Abundant? You mean like believing that there's enough for everyone?
Exactly. Believing in our ability to create a future where everyone has what they need to thrive. He thinks that's the key to making sure these technologies are used for good.
Okay, I like that. It's hopeful, But how do we actually make that shift? How do we go from scarcity to abundance? It seems like a pretty tall order.
It is a tall order. But Stolyarov's thing is it all starts with, like, just noticing it. Like becoming aware of how much that scarcity mindset, that fear of not having enough, how much that's running the show in our heads.
So we have to, like, wake up and realize that we're stuck in that mindset.
Yeah. And then we can actually start to choose something different. He's not saying it's easy, but it starts with awareness.
Okay, so we're more aware of the problem than what? How do we actually shift to this abundance mindset you're talking about?
Education is a big one, he says. Like, we need to be teaching people how to think critically about all of this, about the good and the bad that comes with these new technologies.
And how those things all connect back to the problems we're trying to solve.
Right. Because they are connected, even if it doesn't always seem like it. He's really big on breaking down those silos. Yeah, like instead of just focusing on one problem at a time, we start to see the bigger picture.
So it's like zooming out and seeing how it all fits together.
Exactly. And when we do that, we can start to see that, hey, maybe there are solutions that actually benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Which brings us back to that idea of universal basic income. It seems like that's one of the ways Stolyarov sees us getting closer to that abundance, right?
Definitely. He sees it as a way to deal with the whole automation thing, but it's also like way more than that. He thinks it could actually unleash a lot of creativity, you know?
How so?
Well, if people aren't so worried about just surviving, about paying the bills, they're free to take more risks, to pursue their passions.
It's like it frees them up to contribute to society in a different way.
Exactly. And it's not just about money either. It's about access to education, to healthcare, to opportunities. It's about creating a world where everyone has a chance to thrive.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up here, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about super soldiers and artificial intelligence and living forever. It's a lot to process.
It really is. Transhumanism, it's a big topic.
It is. So for the listener who's still with us, for anyone who made it through this whole wild ride, what's the one thing you hope they take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is that the future isn't set in stone. We're not just along for the ride here. We actually get to decide what the future looks like.
It's about making choices.
Exactly. It's about the choices we make today, about the technologies we develop, the policies we support, even just how we think about the world. Stolyarov, he really believes we have the power to create a better future. But it's up to us to actually do it.
So no pressure,
Yeah.
right? But seriously, it's a lot to think about. But I think that's a good place to leave it. Food for thought. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Anytime. This stuff is fascinating.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep on transhumanism, a movement that's all about using technology to push the boundaries of human potential.
Yeah.
We'll be diving into excerpts from 2 YouTube videos featuring guests from the U.S. Transhumanist Party. U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon with Jonathan M.S. Pearce, July 30, 2023. And What is Transhumanism? Q&A with transhumanist guests.
Very cool.
You know, it's funny.
What's that?
When I hear transhumanism, my mind jumps to sci-fi movies with cyborgs and super soldiers.
Yeah.
But these sources paint a much more nuanced picture.
Oh, really?
Suggesting that many of us are already engaging in transhumanist practices.
Interesting.
Without even realizing it. So I'm really curious to unpack this with you.
Okay.
To get beyond the hype and explore what transhumanism really means.
Yeah?
Both philosophically and practically.
Absolutely.
What do you say?
Let's do it.
Shall we dive in?
Let's dive in.
What's fascinating is that transhumanism isn't about replacing humanity with technology,
Right.
as some fear.
Yeah, it's not about that.
It's about using science and tech to amplify our capability, to reach beyond our current limitations.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It really does.
It's more about evolution than revolution, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of erasing what it means to be human, it's about expanding our potential.
Expanding it, exactly.
Exactly. And it challenges us to reconsider
It does.
our relationship with technology.
That's right.
Think about something as simple as wearing glasses.
Okay.
You're using technology to enhance your vision.
Yeah.
A basic form of transhumanism that most of us wouldn't even think twice about.
I never thought about it like that. That's interesting.
It really makes you wonder, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
What distinguishes a simple tool from a transhumanist technology?
Yeah. That's a great question.
And it's one that transhumanists themselves grapple with. They do.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum of thought within the movement,
Uh,
from those who embrace relatively low-tech interventions like improved nutrition and exercise,
okay.
to those who envision radical life extension and cognitive enhancement through advanced biotechnology and AI.
So like on one end you have just like better living, basically.
Yeah.
And on the other end you have like,
Really out there stuff.
yeah, the singularity and things like that.
Speaking of AI, that's a topic that always gets me thinking.
Sure.
I mean, the idea of sentient machines is both fascinating and a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Where does AI fit into the transhumanist vision?
Well, it's actually a central theme
Okay.
in transhumanist thought.
It's interesting.
It's seen as a tool with incredible potential to solve some of humanity's biggest challenges.
Like what?
From disease and poverty to climate change and even existential threats.
But couldn't it also create new problems? Like, what about the potential for AI to become uncontrollable?
Right.
Or even malicious? I mean, haven't we all seen those sci-fi movies
Yes.
where the robots take over?
That's a valid concern.
Yep.
And responsible transhumanists acknowledge the need for safeguards.
Okay.
In fact, the concept of reciprocal accountability is often discussed.
Reciprocal accountability?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one before.
So it's the idea that as we develop increasingly powerful technologies,
Okay.
we need to build in checks and balances to ensure they are used ethically and for the benefit of humanity.
So, like, we're accountable to the AI, and the AI is accountable to us.
Kind of like a two-way street.
Gotcha.
Technology serves us, but we also have a responsibility to guide its development and use in a way that aligns with our values.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does.
So it's not just about blind technological advancement.
No, it's not.
It's about considering the ethical implications
It is.
and ensuring that progress serves humanity, not the other way around. Precisely now, this emphasis on responsible development leads us to another important aspect of transhumanism.
Which is?
Its political dimension.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
The U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Honestly, I was a bit surprised to learn that there's an actual political party dedicated to these ideas.
A whole political party.
What are they trying to achieve?
Well, the U.S. Transhumanist Party exists to advocate for policies that support transhumanist ideals and to bring these issues into mainstream political discourse.
I see.
They have three core tenets.
Okay.
Life extension, a rational society, and mitigating existential risks.
Life extension, I get.
Right.
But what exactly do they mean by a rational society?
They advocate for a society guided by reason, evidence-based decision-making, and a focus on solving problems collaboratively.
Gotcha.
They argue that these principles are essential for navigating the complexities of a rapidly changing world.
Especially as technology becomes increasingly powerful.
Yeah, especially.
Interesting. So it's not just about promoting specific technology.
It's not.
It's about fostering a particular mindset.
That's right.
A way of approaching problems and making decisions.
That's right.
Absolutely. They see a rational approach as essential for ensuring that technological advancements are used wisely.
For the benefit of all.
And for the benefit of all. Now, one way they're trying to achieve this is by influencing the Overton window.
The Overton window.
Have you ever heard of that term?
I have.
Vaguely, it has something to do with what's considered acceptable to talk about in public, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the range of ideas considered politically acceptable and mainstream at a given time.
Okay.
The U.S. Transhumanist Party wants to shift this window by introducing transhumanist ideas into public discourse, making them less fringe and more part of the mainstream conversation.
That's a bold strategy.
It is a bold strategy.
But even if you agree with their goals, it's hard to imagine a third party gaining real political power in a system dominated by the two major parties.
It's very, very difficult.
It's definitely a challenge, but the U.S. Transhumanist Party believes that by raising awareness and promoting dialogue, they can gradually shift public opinion and influence policy.
I see.
Even if they don't win elections outright.
So they're thinking long term.
They're playing a long game, and it will be interesting to see how their efforts unfold.
Very interesting.
It does make you wonder, though.
What's that?
What do people find so concerning about transhumanism?
Yeah.
That it needs to be normalized in the first place.
Right.
What are some of the main criticisms or fears?
Well, one common concern is that transhumanist technologies will exacerbate existing inequalities, creating a divide between the haves and have-nots, with only the wealthy and powerful having access to life-extending treatments or cognitive enhancements.
I mean, we already see disparities in access to healthcare and education.
We do.
How can we ensure that these advancements benefit everyone?
That's the question.
Not just a privileged few.
That's right.
The U.S. Transhumanist Party actually addresses this directly.
They do.
They argue that democratizing access to these technologies is crucial. Advocating for policies that promote affordable healthcare, education, and research funding.
So they're not just saying like, hey, let's invent all this crazy stuff.
Right.
They're also thinking about how to make it accessible.
They believe that everyone should have the opportunity to benefit from these advancements, regardless of their economic status.
That's good.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is.
It sounds like they're trying to be proactive in addressing these concerns and thinking about the social impact of these technologies.
The social impact.
But what about the philosophical implications?
Okay.
I mean, if we start radically altering our bodies and minds, does that change what it means to be human?
Now that is a deep question.
It is.
And it goes to the heart of what transhumanism is really about.
I think so.
Some people fear that by enhancing ourselves, we're somehow losing our humanity.
Becoming more machine than human.
Yeah, becoming more machine than human.
Yeah, that idea definitely creeps into a lot of science fiction, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, the more technology we integrate into our bodies, the less human we become. But transhumanists argue that it's not a zero-sum game.
It's not.
They see technology as a tool that can help us realize our full potential as humans.
Okay.
Allowing us to live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives.
Longer, healthier, more fulfilling.
They don't see a fundamental conflict between technology and humanity.
Yeah.
Rather, they see technology as a means to enhance and extend our human experience.
To enhance and extend our human experience.
That's a thought-provoking perspective.
It is thought-provoking.
But it still raises a lot of questions.
Like?
For example, what about the potential impact of these technologies on our relationships? Our families, our society as a whole.
Our society as a whole.
I mean, if people start living for centuries, wouldn't that fundamentally change everything?
It would.
About how we organize our lives and our communities?
Absolutely.
Those are all valid questions, and they point to the complexity of transhumanism.
They do.
It's not just about developing new technologies.
Right.
It's about considering their broader social, ethical, and philosophical implications.
Those are important.
And those are conversations that we all need to be having.
Absolutely.
As we venture into this uncharted territory.
Into this uncharted territory.
Absolutely. Speaking of venturing into uncharted territory.
Okay.
One area that always sparks debate is the intersection of transhumanism and religion.
Transhumanism and religion.
I mean, are they fundamentally compatible?
Yeah.
Or are they inherently at odds?
That is a fascinating question.
It is.
And you might be surprised to learn that the U.S. Transhumanist Party has members from a variety of religious backgrounds, including Christians, Mormons, and others.
That's unexpected.
It is.
How do they reconcile seemingly conflicting beliefs about the nature of life, death, and the human soul?
How do they reconcile those beliefs?
It's a testament to the diversity of human thought.
Yeah.
And the ability to hold seemingly contradictory beliefs.
The ability to hold seemingly contradictory beliefs.
For some, transhumanism aligns with their faith.
Oh, interesting.
As they see it as a way to fulfill God's mandate to care for creation and improve the human condition. Others might compartmentalize these beliefs.
Okay.
Seeing them as distinct, but not necessarily conflicting aspects of their worldview.
I see.
So it's not a black and white issue.
No, it's not.
There's room for nuance and interpretation.
There is.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of open dialogue and respectful engagement with different perspectives.
That's very true.
Now, speaking of challenging assumptions, one of the most provocative questions raised by transhumanism is whether death is truly inevitable, like the possibility of achieving immortality.
Yes.
One speaker in the source material actually poses this question.
Okay.
What if our purpose is to discover that death is not inevitable, but rather a disease to be overcome?
Wow.
It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about the human experience and the limits of what's possible.
It really does.
It definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does.
What if death is not the end, but a problem to be solved?
Right.
What if we could live indefinitely, constantly learning, growing, and evolving?
It would change everything.
Wow, that's getting deep.
It is.
Absolutely. And that's what makes transhumanism so fascinating.
It is.
It forces us to confront some of the biggest questions about life, death, and the nature of our existence.
Some of the biggest questions.
It's a conversation that can push us beyond our comfort zones.
Yeah.
And challenge us to think in new and often unsettling ways.
Absolutely.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad.
But I have to admit, it's a lot to process.
It is.
I think we need to pause here for a moment.
Okay.
And let all this sink in.
Let it all sink in. Yeah, take a moment.
Okay, I think I've had a moment to digest all that.
Good.
So we've touched on some pretty big philosophical questions,
Right.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
What are some of the practical implications of these ideas?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about extending lifespan,
Okay.
enhancing our cognitive abilities, even merging with AI, wouldn't that fundamentally change everything about how we live, work, and interact with each other?
Absolutely. Transhumanism isn't just about abstract ideas.
Right.
It's about real-world changes
Yeah.
that could reshape our society in profound ways.
Give me an example.
Okay, so for example, if we achieve radical life extension,
Okay.
wouldn't that completely transform our concepts of retirement, education, even marriage and family?
It's mind-blowing to think about.
It really is.
I mean, would people still get married if they knew they might live for centuries?
Right.
And how would we support a population that's living far beyond traditional lifespans?
These are the kinds of questions that transhumanists are actively exploring.
Are they?
Some propose the need for entirely new social structures and economic models
Wow.
to accommodate these changes.
Like what?
For example, they envision a future where work is less about subsistence
Okay.
and more about pursuing passions and contributing to society in meaningful ways.
That sounds pretty utopian.
It does sound utopian.
But it also raises concerns.
Such as?
Like, what about the potential for boredom or lack of purpose in a life that could span centuries?
That's another common concern. Transhumanists, they argue that extending lifespan isn't just about adding years.
Yeah.
It's about enhancing the quality of those years.
So it's about more than just quantity. It's about quality, too.
It's about quality as well.
That makes sense. But let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And talk about something that's been on my mind.
What's that?
AI sentience.
AI sentience.
It's a topic that always seems to spark intense debate.
It really does.
How do transhumanists approach the question of whether AI can truly think and feel?
It's a complex issue, and there's a range of perspectives within the transhumanist community.
I bet.
Some believe that sentience is an emergent property of complex systems,
Okay.
and that as AI becomes more sophisticated, it will inevitably develop consciousness.
So, like, the more complex it gets,
Uh-huh.
the more likely it is to be sentient.
Exactly.
Okay.
Others are more cautious, arguing that we need to be careful about ascribing human-like qualities to machines,
I see.
especially since we don't fully understand consciousness ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is a good point.
You know, it's funny.
What is it?
When we talk about AI sentience, my mind immediately goes to that classic philosophical thought experiment.
Which one is that?
The philosophical zombie.
The philosophical zombie.
Have you ever heard of that one?
Of course. It's a thought experiment that challenges our assumptions about consciousness.
Yeah.
The idea is to imagine a being that perfectly mimics human behavior, but lacks any internal experience.
Like, it acts like it's conscious,
Exactly.
but there's nothing going on inside.
Exactly. So even if an AI could pass the Turing test,
Mm-hmm.
even if it could convince us that it's thinking and feeling, how could we ever know for sure if there's any real subjective experience
Right.
behind its actions?
Yeah, it's impossible to know.
It really is.
It's a profound question.
It is.
And it highlights the limitations of our current understanding of consciousness.
Our limited understanding.
Transhumanists often point to this thought experiment as a reminder
Okay.
that we need to be humble in our assumptions about what constitutes sentience,
Yeah.
both in humans and in machines.
Both in humans and in machines.
It's definitely a reminder that there's still so much we don't know.
So much we don't know.
Yeah. About the nature of consciousness.
It's a mystery.
But even if we can't definitively prove or disprove AI sentience,
Right.
it seems like we still need to consider the ethical implications.
Absolutely we do.
I mean, if there's even a chance that AI could be capable of suffering, shouldn't we treat it with some level of respect and consideration?
Absolutely. And that's a core ethical principle within transhumanism.
It is.
The idea of extending our circle of compassion to include all sentient beings, regardless of their physical form or origin.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
It is a beautiful sentiment.
It aligns with a lot of philosophical and spiritual traditions that emphasize compassion and interconnectedness.
Exactly. And it speaks to the potential for transhumanism to not only advance technology, but also to evolve our ethical frameworks and expand our understanding of what it means to be part of a larger community of beings.
So we're not just talking about upgrading our gadgets.
No, we're not.
We're talking about upgrading our ethics, too.
We are.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits of transhumanism.
Right.
But let's be realistic. There are bound to be challenges and risks as well.
Of course.
I mean, anytime you're talking about radical technological advancements,
Yeah.
there's always the potential for things to go wrong.
There is.
And responsible transhumanists acknowledge these risks.
They do. They argue that we need to be proactive in identifying potential problems and developing safeguards to prevent unintended consequences.
So it's not just about pursuing progress at all costs.
No, it's not.
It's about balancing innovation with caution.
It is.
And ensuring that technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that requires careful planning, open dialogue, and a willingness to adapt and adjust course as we learn more about the impacts of these technologies.
It sounds like transhumanism isn't just about technology.
It's not.
It's about creating a future that's both technologically advanced and ethically grounded.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That brings us back to the role of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. One of their goals is to bring these issues into the mainstream political debate, encouraging a more nuanced and informed conversation about the future of technology and its impact on society.
I'm curious, how do they plan to achieve that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to advocate for specific policies, but it's another thing entirely to shift the entire political landscape.
It's a big challenge. But remember our discussion of the Overton window.
Yeah.
One of their strategies is to gradually shift that window by introducing transhumanist ideas into public discourse, making them less fringe and more part of the mainstream conversation.
So it's about changing the conversation, planting the seeds for long-term change.
Exactly.
They believe that once people understand the potential benefits and challenges of transhumanism, they'll be more likely to support policies that promote responsible development and equitable access to these technologies.
That's the idea.
That makes sense. But what about the people who are fundamentally opposed to transhumanism?
Right.
How do you bridge that divide?
That's a tough one.
I mean, some people might see these ideas as unnatural, even dangerous.
Of course, and that's where the emphasis on rational discourse comes in.
Okay.
The U.S. Transhumanist Party advocates for engaging in respectful dialogue, even with those who hold opposing views.
So being open to different perspectives.
Exactly.
Okay.
They believe that open and honest conversation is crucial for finding common ground and building consensus.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, even if we don't agree on everything.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to coexist, even if we have different visions of the future.
Right.
And it's about recognizing that these are complex issues with no easy answers. We need to be able to talk to each other, to listen and learn from different perspectives.
I like that. Speaking of different perspectives, one thing that always fascinates me about transhumanism is its intersection with various philosophical and spiritual traditions. I mean, you have everything from secular humanists and techno-optimists to transhumanist Buddhists and Christians. It's a surprisingly diverse movement.
It really is. And that diversity speaks to the fact that transhumanism isn't just about technology. It's about exploring the fundamental questions of what it means to be human and what our place is in the universe.
So the big question.
The big question.
Yeah.
It's about pushing the boundaries of our understanding and imagining new possibilities for our individual and collective futures.
It's almost like a philosophical adventure, isn't it?
It is kind of like philosophical adventure.
A quest to understand ourselves and our potential in a rapidly changing world.
Exactly. And that quest involves not only technological innovation, but also ethical reflection, philosophical inquiry, and a willingness to engage with different perspectives and challenge our own assumptions.
Wow. You know, we could probably do a whole other deep dive just on that.
We could.
But for now, let's try to stay focused.
Okay.
But you've definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I have to admit, I'm still a bit unclear on how all of this relates to the U.S. Transhumanist Party's political agenda.
Okay.
I mean, how do you translate these big ideas into concrete policies?
That's a great question, and it brings us back to their three core tenets.
Okay.
Life extension, a rational society, and mitigating existential risks.
Right.
These tenets provide a framework for developing policies that promote scientific research, technological innovation, and ethical decision-making in areas like healthcare, education, environmental protection, and even space exploration.
So it's about creating a political environment that supports the advancement of transhumanist goals.
Yes.
While also ensuring that these advancements are used responsibly and for the benefit of all.
Precisely. And they believe that by advocating for these policies and engaging in public discourse, they can help shape a future that's both technologically advanced and ethically sound.
You know, one of the things that strikes me about transhumanism is its focus on the long-term future.
The long-term future.
I mean, they're not just talking about the next election cycle. They're thinking about the next century, even the next millennium.
That's right. They're taking a long view of history and recognizing that the choices we make today will have profound implications for generations to come.
Wow.
And they believe that by addressing existential risks and promoting responsible technological development, we can create a future where humanity can flourish for centuries, even millennia to come.
That's an inspiring vision, but it also begs the question.
What's that?
How do we even begin to wrap our minds around such a vast timescale?
That's a great question.
I mean, it's hard enough to plan for next week, let alone the next 1,000 years.
It's definitely a challenge to think on such a grand scale.
It is.
But transhumanists argue that it's essential to develop a long-term perspective if we want to create a future that's both sustainable and fulfilling.
Okay.
They encourage us to think beyond our immediate concerns and consider the impact of our actions on future generations.
That makes sense, but I'm also curious, how do we balance that long-term vision with the need to address the very real problems that people are facing right now? I mean, what good is a utopian future if we can't even solve the challenges of poverty, inequality, and climate change that are already upon us?
That's a crucial point. And responsible transhumanists acknowledge that we can't simply ignore the problems of the present while focusing solely on the future.
Right.
They argue that many of the technologies being developed to address existential risks,
Such as
AI, biotechnology, and renewable energy, can also be applied to solve some of our most pressing current challenges.
So it's not an either-or proposition.
It's not.
It's about finding ways to leverage these advancements to create a better present while also paving the way for a more sustainable and fulfilling future.
Exactly. And that requires a holistic approach that integrates technological innovation with social justice, environmental responsibility, and a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all things.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. I think we need to pause here for a moment and let all this sink in. Okay, so it's all about balance.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Okay, I think I've caught my breath. Where were we?
I think we were talking about.
Oh, right. Trying to reconcile the transhumanist vision of a technologically advanced future with the very real problems we face today.
Right, those pressing issues.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is a bit of a paradox.
Like, how do we focus on these long-term goals when there's so much suffering happening right now? But transhumanists argue that many of the technologies they're excited about, AI, biotech, nanotech, aren't just for reaching some far-off utopia.
No, they're not.
They have the potential to address current crises, too.
That's right. They can be used for both.
Give me an example.
Okay.
How does, say, aiming for radical life extension help with something like climate change?
That's a good question. It's less about a direct link and more about the mindset shift. Transhumanism pushes us to think long-term, beyond our own lifespans.
I see.
If we're serious about extending human life, we have to solve sustainability issues or there won't be a future to enjoy.
So it forces us to take responsibility for the planet's well-being.
It does.
Because our own well-being is tied to it.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. And this long-term thinking can apply to other problems, too.
Absolutely.
Poverty, disease, resource scarcity. They all require solutions that consider the interconnectedness of systems, not just quick fixes.
That's right. They're all connected.
That's where the rational society idea comes in. Making decisions based on evidence and reason, not just short-term gain or emotional reactions.
Just knee-jerk reactions.
Precisely. Transhumanists argue that to navigate a future with powerful technologies, we need clear thinking, critical analysis of information, and a willingness to collaborate across differences.
We need to be able to work together.
Okay, that's a compelling argument.
Yeah, it is.
But let's talk about something a bit more concrete.
Sure.
What are some specific technologies the transhumanist community is particularly excited about right now?
Okay.
Stuff that's not just sci-fi, but actually being developed.
Well, one area that's generating a lot of buzz is CRISPR gene editing.
CRISPR.
It's already being used to treat some genetic diseases, but the potential goes far beyond that.
Like what?
Imagine being able to eliminate inherited conditions.
Okay.
Enhance immune systems, even slow down aging at the cellular level.
Whoa. That's getting into some serious science fiction territory.
It does sound like sci-fi, but it's becoming reality. It's definitely a topic with profound ethical implications.
I can see that.
And responsible transhumanists are the first to say that careful consideration and open debate are crucial. But they also argue that the potential benefits, especially in terms of alleviating human suffering, are too significant to ignore.
So it's about pushing the boundaries of science while also ensuring that these advancements are used ethically and for the benefit of all.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the role of organizations like the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Right.
They're advocating for policies that support research and development, but also for equitable access to these technologies.
Speaking of access, that's something that's been on my mind throughout this deep dive. What happens if these technologies become so advanced and expensive that only the wealthy and powerful can afford them?
Yeah. What about the rest of us?
Wouldn't that create an even greater divide in society?
That's a very real concern.
Yeah.
And one that the U.S. Transhumanist Party is keenly aware of.
Oh.
They argue that democratizing access to these technologies is crucial for preventing a dystopian future where only a privileged few benefit from advancements.
So what's their solution?
Yeah, how do we fix that?
How do you make something like CRISPR gene editing or advanced AI affordable and accessible to everyone?
They advocate for a combination of approaches, promoting open source research and development, incentivizing innovation that focuses on affordability, and investing in public education and healthcare systems that can make these technologies widely available.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does.
But let's be realistic, those are pretty ambitious goals.
They are ambitious.
Especially in a political climate that often prioritizes short-term gains over long-term vision.
It's definitely an uphill battle.
It is.
But transhumanists believe that by raising awareness, engaging in public discourse, and advocating for policies that align with their values, they can gradually shift the political landscape and create a more supportive environment for these ideas.
So it's about playing the long game.
It is about playing the long game.
Planting the seeds of change and nurturing those seeds until they take root and blossom.
Precisely. And they believe that by fostering a sense of hope and optimism about the future, they can inspire people to embrace the possibilities offered by transhumanism and to work together to create a better world.
You know, one thing that's really struck me about transhumanism,
Yeah.
this sense of radical optimism.
Radical optimism.
Oh, it's refreshing, especially in a world that often feels overwhelmed by negativity and pessimism.
It's true. Transhumanism at its core is a belief in the potential of humanity to overcome challenges, to solve problems, and to create a future that's better than the past.
And while there are certainly risks involved,
There are always risks.
it's also incredibly inspiring to consider the possibilities that lie ahead.
It is exciting to think about.
Imagine a world where disease and poverty are eradicated, where human lifespans are extended, where we can explore the cosmos and unlock the secrets of the universe. It's mind-blowing.
It truly is. And whether or not you embrace every aspect of transhumanism, I think we can all agree that it's a movement that forces us to think bigger, to imagine what's possible, and to consider our role in shaping the future.
That's a powerful message.
It is a powerful message.
So for our listeners who are intrigued by these ideas and want to learn more, where should they go?
Where can they find out more?
What resources would you recommend?
Well, the U.S. Transhumanist Party has a website with a wealth of information about their platform, their initiatives, and their vision for the future. There are also numerous online forums and communities where people discuss transhumanist ideas, share resources, and debate the ethical and philosophical implications.
I encourage everyone to check out those resources.
I do too.
And to continue exploring these fascinating and often challenging ideas.
Absolutely.
After all, the future is being shaped right now.
It is being shaped right now.
And we all have a role to play in deciding what that future looks like.
We all have a role to play.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've explored the history, philosophy, and political dimensions of transhumanism. We've debated the potential benefits and risks of these technologies. And we've grappled with some of the most profound questions about the nature of life, death, and the future of humanity.
It's been an incredible journey, and I hope our listeners have come away with a deeper understanding of this complex and often misunderstood movement.
I know I have. Transhumanism is definitely a topic that will continue to spark debate and shape our world in the years to come. And who knows, maybe someday we'll look back at these early conversations as the first steps on a path towards a truly transformative future.
That would be amazing.
Thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration of a fascinating and thought-provoking topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep imagining the possibilities.
Okay, you ready to dive into something really fascinating?
Oh, absolutely.
We're tackling transhumanism today.
Excellent choice.
You sent us a bunch of articles, videos, even some notes, looks like.
Yeah, it seems like our listeners are really interested in this one.
Clearly, you want the full picture on this.
Definitely.
So let's unpack it all, shall we?
Let's do it.
So we'll be focusing on what this transhumanist future might look like.
Right.
The different ways people are trying to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, some of the challenges they're facing along the way.
It's a complex topic with a lot of layers to unpack.
Get this, the term transhumanism pops up as early as the 14th century.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But we'll be looking at how it's evolved into this whole movement today.
Right.
With serious scientists, politicians, even everyday folks all involved.
It's true. This isn't just some fringe group anymore.
So before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
what exactly is transhumanism?
Well, you've provided some great material, including a talk by Gennady Stolyarov II,
Ah, yes.
the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Right, right.
And he offers a few different definitions, which I think is actually helpful because it shows that there's not just one rigid definition.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. What are some of the ways he defines it?
One definition describes transhumanism as an intellectual and international movement that aims to transform the human condition.
Okay.
Another highlights its focus on enhancing human capabilities through technological and scientific advancements.
So we're talking about things like living longer,
Yes.
having sharper minds, basically becoming like better versions of ourselves through science and technology.
Precisely.
That's like saying, hey, we don't have to settle for what nature gave us.
Right.
We can actively shape our own future.
Absolutely.
That's pretty radical, don't you think?
It definitely challenges our traditional assumptions about human limitations.
Now, that's a powerful statement.
It really captures the ambition of the transhumanist movement.
It seems they're saying we don't have to settle for the limitations that nature gave us.
Exactly. And they believe we have a moral imperative to push beyond those limitations.
Wow. And this Stolyarov guy, he emphasized that it's a big tent movement, right?
He did, and that's important to remember.
So you don't have to agree on every single point to be considered a transhumanist.
Not at all.
That's really interesting.
You have people from all sorts of backgrounds and belief systems who identify as transhumanists.
So we've got this diverse group of people who believe we could use technology to overcome our limitations. But what exactly are they hoping to achieve? What does this transhumanist future actually look like?
Well, the U.S. Transhumanist Party lays out their vision through 3 core ideals.
Okay.
First, they aim for significant life extension achieved through the progress of science and technology.
Living longer, healthier lives.
Right.
That definitely has a broad appeal.
It's something that most people can relate to.
What else is on their agenda?
Their second core ideal focuses on fostering a culture driven by reason, science, and secular values.
So it's not just about individual enhancement.
No.
It's also about creating a better world overall.
Exactly.
And their third core ideal.
It centers around combating existential threats to humanity,
Okay.
both natural and human-made, using those same principles of reason and science.
So it sounds like they have a plan for, well, pretty much everything.
They're definitely ambitious.
But what are the specific technologies driving this vision?
Stolyarov provides a pretty rapid-fire list,
Okay.
and it's quite impressive.
Hit me with it.
Nanotech, AI, space colonization, vertical farming, flying cars. They're thinking big.
Nanotech, AI, space colonization. The scope is truly mind-blowing.
And what's even more fascinating is that many of these fields are already seeing significant advancements.
Let's zoom in on that first core ideal for a sec.
Okay.
Living longer. Just how much longer are we talking here?
That's where things get really interesting. Even within the transhumanist community, there's a whole spectrum of thought on this.
I can imagine.
Stolyarov mentions terms like immortality, biological immortality, perpetual life, and indefinite life extension.
Each one carries a slightly different nuance, don't you think?
They do.
Some people are aiming for true immortality, never dying at all.
Right.
While others are focusing on biological immortality, meaning you wouldn't die of old age or disease, but you could still, have an unfortunate accident.
Exactly.
So it's not about becoming invincible.
No.
It's about overcoming those biological limits that currently dictate our lifespans.
Precisely.
But even within those categories, there seems to be debate about where to focus.
You're right.
Stolyarov mentioned a distinction between simply achieving healthy aging versus pursuing radical life extension.
Right. And some transhumanists argue that focusing solely on healthy aging isn't ambitious enough.
So being a super fit 100-year-old is great and all.
Sure.
But what about breaking past those limits altogether?
Exactly.
That gets to the heart of what transhumanism is all about.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
But it's not just theory, right?
No, not
Some people are already taking action,
absolutely.
like Liz Parrish.
Oh, yes.
She became the 2020 U.S. vice presidential candidate for the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
That's right.
And back in 2015, she decided to become patient zero for a combination gene therapy aimed at reversing aging.
That's quite a commitment to the cause.
It's incredible to see someone so dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's truly remarkable. It is. It really highlights that these aren't just theoretical discussions.
Yeah, there are people actively experimenting, trying to turn these ideas into reality.
It's truly remarkable. And speaking of turning ideas into reality.
Yeah. We've been focusing a lot on the philosophical side of transhumanism.
Right.
But it's not all abstract ideas.
Right. Of course not.
There are actual organizations and initiatives working to make this transhumanist future a reality.
That's right.
We talked about the U.S. Transhumanist Party.
Yeah. Right. Actively working towards political change and life extension therapies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that there's a whole ecosystem of transhumanist organizations out there, each with its own focus and approach.
Oh, I bet.
Some are dedicated to research and development, while others focus on advocacy and education.
Okay.
Or even explore the artistic and cultural implications of transhumanism.
It's incredible to see how this movement is branching out, touching so many different aspects of society.
Really is.
It's not just about labs and scientists. It's about artists, writers, philosophers, and everyday people who are fascinated by the possibilities of, well, human enhancement. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that makes transhumanism so compelling.
What do you mean?
It's not just a scientific or technological pursuit. It's a cultural phenomenon that's shaping how we think, create, and interact with the world around us.
So how can someone who's intrigued by all of this get involved?
Oh, good question.
We've covered some of the big-name organizations and thinkers.
Yeah.
But where does the average person even begin to explore these ideas further?
Well, for starters, there are tons of resources available online. They offer a wealth of information on everything.
Like what?
From the latest advancements in bioengineering to the philosophical implications of artificial intelligence.
So the internet's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Just start Googling and see where it takes you.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of social media.
Oh, yeah, of course.
There are vibrant transhumanist communities on platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook, where you can connect with like-minded individuals, share your thoughts and questions, and stay up to date on the latest news and events.
It sounds like there's a whole online world waiting to be explored.
There is.
But what about real-life interactions?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are there any conferences or meetups where people can connect face-to-face?
Absolutely. There are several transhumanist conferences held throughout the year, both in the U.S. and internationally.
Cool.
These conferences bring together researchers, entrepreneurs, artists, and enthusiasts from all walks of life to discuss the latest advancements and the future of the movement.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity to meet the people who are actually shaping this field.
It is.
Any conferences you'd recommend checking out?
One of the most well-known is the Transvision Conference, which is held annually in various locations around the world. They cover a wide range from life extension and artificial intelligence to space exploration and the future of work.
Wow, that's quite the range. It seems like there's a whole community of people out there who are passionate about these ideas.
There really is.
And it's not just limited to scientists and technologists.
Not at all.
You'll find artists, writers, musicians, and people from all walks of life who are drawn to the transformative potential of transhumanism.
It's true.
It's fascinating to see how this movement is bringing together people from such diverse backgrounds.
It is, and I think that's one of its strengths.
How so?
It's not a monolithic ideology. It's a dynamic and evolving conversation that's constantly being shaped by new perspectives and ideas.
Speaking of new perspectives, I'm curious to hear more about how transhumanist ideas are showing up in art and culture. We've been talking a lot about the science and technology, but how are these advancements influencing creative expression?
That's a great question.
So spill the tea. How is transhumanism manifesting in these different creative realms?
Well, one trend we're seeing is the exploration of bioart.
Bioart?
Yeah.
What's that?
which uses biological materials and processes as a medium for artistic creation.
So instead of paint and canvas, they're using things like cells,
Yeah.
DNA, and even living organisms.
Exactly. It's a very cutting edge and often controversial form of art that challenges our traditional notions of what art can be.
So what are some examples?
Some artists are creating stunning visualizations of cells and tissues,
Okay.
while others are using bioart to make statements about the ethical implications of biotechnology, as genetic engineering or cloning.
It's like using art to explore the boundaries between science, ethics, and aesthetics all at the same time. What else?
And then there's transhumanist science fiction.
Sci-fi.
Which has been around for decades,
Right.
but is experiencing a resurgence of popularity as these technologies become more tangible.
Right. It's not just some far-off fantasy anymore.
Authors and filmmakers are exploring worlds where humans have merged with machines, achieved immortality, or colonized distant planets.
Wow.
Prompting us to think about the potential implications of these advancements in a visceral and imaginative way.
Sci-fi is always a good way to explore the what-ifs of the future.
It is.
But it's not just about books and movies, is it?
Not at all. Transhumanist themes are also showing up in music and performance art.
Interesting.
Think about electronic music artists who use technology to create soundscapes that evoke a sense of futuristic wonder or explore the intersection of the human and the machine.
And what about performance art?
We're seeing explorations of body modification, sensory enhancement, and the blurring lines between the physical and the digital.
Wow. It seems like transhumanism is influencing art and culture in so many different ways.
It really is.
And that's what's so exciting about it.
It's not just about dry scientific research.
Okay.
It's about expanding our creativity and imagination, prompting us to ask big questions about what it means to be human in an age of rapidly advancing technology.
All of this has been incredibly thought-provoking.
Good.
But as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's your overall assessment of the transhumanist movement? So what are some of the things that make you optimistic about the future of transhumanism?
Well, I'm excited about the potential for these advancements to improve human health and well-being.
Give me an example.
Imagine a world where diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's are a thing of the past, where we can live longer, healthier lives, and where our cognitive abilities are enhanced beyond what we can currently imagine.
Those are definitely some compelling possibilities.
They are.
So, as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I'm left with a sense of excitement.
Oh, good.
This transhumanist future is full of possibilities.
It is.
But it's up to us to make sure we're shaping it in a way that's ethical, sustainable, and beneficial for all.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, shall we explore what a future shaped by transhumanist ideals might actually look like?
Absolutely. Let's dive into that next.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that next. So we've talked about the philosophy, the technology of transhumanism.
Right.
But let's get down to the real nitty-gritty here.
Okay.
What might a future shaped by these ideas actually look like?
It's a question that sparks the imagination.
For sure.
And while it's impossible to predict the future with certainty, we can explore some potential scenarios based on the goals and advancements we've discussed.
Okay, so let's put on our futurist hats here.
Let's do it.
What are some of the possibilities?
Well, one area where we might see pretty dramatic changes is in human lifespans.
Okay.
You know, if those radical life extension therapies become a reality, we could be looking at a future where people routinely live to be 150, 200, or even older.
Wow, that's a big change.
It would be.
How would that impact society?
Oh, it would have profound implications.
Oh, I bet. Like what?
For everything.
Okay.
From retirement planning and healthcare to family structures and even our sense of identity.
That's interesting.
Imagine multiple generations living and working alongside each other with a wealth of accumulated knowledge and experience.
It would certainly challenge our traditional notions of aging and, well, the life cycle.
It would require us to rethink many of our societal norms.
What about work? Like, how would people's careers evolve in a world where they could potentially work for a century or more?
That's a fascinating question.
Right.
We might see a shift away from that traditional model of working for a few decades. Right.
And then retiring.
Right.
People might have multiple careers throughout their extended lifespans, constantly learning new skills and adapting to changing industries.
That's a really interesting thought. Education would become an ongoing process, right?
Exactly.
Not just something you do in your youth.
Right, it would be a lifelong pursuit.
It's fascinating to imagine how those societal norms would, well, shift and evolve.
It would be a period of tremendous social and cultural change.
But let's move beyond just living longer.
Okay.
What other transformations might we see?
Well, remember those brain-computer interfaces? If those become commonplace,
Yeah.
we could see a future where human cognition is dramatically enhanced.
Okay, paint me a picture. What would that actually look like?
Imagine being able to access information instantly,
Mm-hmm.
process complex data with ease,
Okay.
and even communicate telepathically with others.
That's mind-blowing.
It would revolutionize how we learn, work, and even relate to each other. And beyond cognitive enhancement, imagine a world where nanotechnology has revolutionized manufacturing and medicine.
Yes.
We could have self-healing materials,
Yeah.
personalized drug therapies delivered at the cellular level,
Uh-huh.
and even the ability to regenerate damaged tissues and organs.
It's an incredible vision.
It sounds like a future where disease and disability are, well, things of the past.
That's the hope.
Of course, we need to be realistic
Right.
about the challenges involved in developing and deploying these technologies safely and ethically.
We can't just assume that these advancements will automatically lead to a utopian future.
Yeah, for sure. But the potential benefits are, well, immense.
They are. They have the potential to transform human life as we know it.
It's clear that this transhumanist future could be incredibly transformative.
It could reshape our world in ways we can barely imagine. It's about using technology to enhance our humanity, not replace it.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey.
It has.
We've explored the history, the philosophy, the technology, and even the potential future of transhumanism.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But as we wrap up, I'm curious,
Yeah.
what's your final takeaway for our listeners?
Oh, that's a good one.
What's the one thing you hope they'll walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is that the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we actively create.
Okay.
Through our choices, our actions, and the conversations we have about the kind of world we want to live in.
So whether someone embraces that label of transhumanist or not,
right,
these ideas and advancements are going to impact all of our lives.
They already are.
And it's up to each of us to engage with these ideas, to think critically about the possibilities and the challenges, and to contribute to the conversation about how we want to shape the future of humanity.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
This deep dive has been fascinating.
It has.
Thought-provoking and at times even a bit mind-blowing.
I agree.
I hope our listener is feeling as inspired and energized as I am to continue exploring these ideas and shaping the future we want to see.
Me too. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure discussing this with you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive into the world of transhumanism. Until next time, keep exploring.